Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the idea of training to improve your confidence. And I want to create an argument for you guys that training for strength rather than training for aesthetics is your primary goal. If you are joining the gym to improve your confidence, will the majority of the time be a better tool. Now, I'm not saying that you can't improve your aesthetics. I'm not telling you by training for strength that you should get fat and drink a gallon of milk a day. I'm not telling you any of those things. People need to understand that. Now, a lot of you guys do realize who go to the gym to train that you're like, well, I also know that there's studies showing that women are attracted to confident men, and I know I need to improve my confidence. Well, that's true. So your goal then should be, what can I do to improve my confidence, not what can I do in the gym that I think is going to make me more confident in the long run? Because ultimately what we find is that because of the social standards, particularly created by the internet among the gym going population, I have noticed probably at least half of guys, if not more, lose confidence as they train, particularly guys who chase the aesthetic thing. And that's largely because the bar has been raised really, really high. In other words, the sort of aesthetic standards that have been set now to be considered aesthetic and attractive by this whole community, and then people will get feedback online on their social media and everything else, is so high that most guys are going to need to train at least 5 years really hard to reach that goal, and that's assuming they've got pretty decent genetics for it. And in a lot of cases, they're probably going to have to go on drugs to do that. That's because the bar has been set so high. Now, by normal societal standards, if a guy's just trying to improve his aesthetics, that's easy to do. But the problem is that people aren't getting feedback from the general community on this. They get on the internet when they start training for this stuff and they start seeing the standards there. They see the fitness model. They see these other people, and all of a sudden that becomes their standard, and they're not going to reach that. For most people, you know what, if you just got decent at doing weighted chin-ups and the standing press, and you added a couple inches to your arms, added a couple inches to the width of your shoulder girdle, and you lost 7 or 8 pounds of fat, most guys out there would look dramatically more aesthetic than they do now. A little bit of V-taper, a little bit of arm, a little wider shoulders, bring your waistline down, lose some fluff. All right, that's not hard. It's not hard to build a physique to where the average person says, hey, that guy looks like he lifts. It's not that difficult. The problem is that as soon as we jump into this chasing aesthetics and people get involved in the internet community and all of that, I find so many guys get their self-esteem crushed. Or it's like Dom over with Bro Science made a joke before, the day you join the gym is the day you stay forever small. Now, what I would suggest to a lot of people is focus on strength training. And the reason for that, your subjective feelings and opinion and how you think you look today, because here's the thing, that's going to matter. It won't matter to the barbell. In other words, you can track your weight and you can pull up charts. And you know that if you're doing a proper pause bench, not bouncing it off your chest, you can look at your body weight, the amount you lift, and you can go look at a chart and see how you stack up. You can also know that you're stronger than you were last month. In other words, you know by the work that you put in that you're making progress and you're working towards a goal that's going to improve you on a physical level. You're working on a goal that's going to improve you on a physical level that's objective. All right, a parallel squat is a parallel squat. A deadlift is a deadlift. If you can lock it at the top without hitching, it's a deadlift. All right, a strict standing press, you know how much you can press. This stuff isn't subjective. It's all numbers, and you can track your progress. And there is something to be said for the confidence that comes with working hard towards a self-improving goal. And it doesn't even matter what that goal is. I mean, I'm using just the weight training as an example, and I'm giving as the example of weight training that is most likely to achieve this psychological effect. And that's because anytime you put in work towards a self-improvement goal and you see objective evidence that you are improving at it, and you do it for a while, as a long-term endeavor, it doesn't matter what it is. Your confidence tends to improve. You tend to feel better about yourself as a person, and you feel better about yourself as a man if you're a man, because particularly weightlifting, it's a manly endeavor. Now, I wish it wasn't seen that way socially, because I would rather we get a lot more women involved in heavy weight training. But there is a social norm that defines lifting heavy weight as a manly, masculine endeavor. And therefore, accordingly, we tend to have that social response, and it builds confidence in that regard also. Furthermore, when you know that you are physically strong and you are a physically capable person, it tends to make us more confident as people. It tends to reduce insecurities. The only time you see the insecurity rise in the strength training world are the guys who cheat the most, the guys who are willing to cheat all the time on their lifts and do terrible form and do all this stuff to try to cheat more weight because they're embarrassed by their lifts, or their lifts aren't impressive enough. You might see some insecurities there in certain guys like that. But the general rule, when you find guys who train for strength for long periods of time, the majority of the time you find confidence in those men as a personality trait. And it's not because only confident men start weight training. Because I've seen guys out there over the years who started out as kind of meek, mousy guys. You know, they were not what you would think of as particularly confident, who started strength training, and 2-3 years down the road, you see a dramatic change in that personality and just the way that they carry themselves. Because there is obviously that psychological benefit we described, and the fact that you have objective measurements, but there is also something to be said for being a man who knows that he is physically capable, who knows that he is physically stronger and probably faster than the average guy, that he knows that. And that carries a degree of confidence building right there in social environments and in general. Because again, being physically capable can boost confidence. And I'm not saying a person who has some disabilities and things can't be confident. I'm not saying that at all. Don't get that wrong, because they can be. But what I am saying is that there is a confidence boost that just automatically comes from that. It comes from that automatically. And conversely, when we go back to the whole thing of chasing aesthetics, in the grand scheme of things, if you put on a lot of muscle mass and you get strong on basic lifts just through heavy training, and you don't get really fat, and you do eventually get a little leaner, let's say you did gain a little bit of fat to get stronger, that's not uncommon, you can always burn it off later. And if you end up putting on 20 solid pounds of muscle through strength training, and you then diet off the extra fluff that you gained, and you end up at a lower body fat percentage than where you started, aren't you going to end up a lot more aesthetic anyways? Of course you are. But you're going to have the side effect of the additional strength, the additional performance, and everything else. And if you never focused on that stuff, you won't get caught up in that subjective aspect of it. And guys who don't believe me, go befriend the dudes who have the really good physiques at the gym. Go talk to them. I think you're going to be shocked. They're not going to be the douchey guy that the stereotype says they are. That's a stereotype. In my experience, most of the guys who have really impressive physiques, as I've known many over the years, a lot of them struggle with their self-esteem. They struggle with their confidence, and them getting into chasing their aesthetics never improved that. In some cases, they are way worse off for it. You will find that they are self-critical like the hot chick is. And you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. You all know, you've met girls who are at least a solid 8 or a 9 out of 10. They're hot. They're way above average. Who are very critical of themselves. They don't think they look good. And they're not doing it chasing your compliments, contrary to what you believe. They legitimately see the flaws in themselves. They'll tend to oftentimes be very self-conscious of how they look, or their body, or their butt, or their eyebrows, or whatever it happens to be when they look hot. All right? A lot of these guys, it's the exact same thing, because they get caught up in the subjective. How do I look? Well, aesthetic is subject to a lot of interpretation. It's also subject to where you set the bar and what the standard is. And unfortunately, we have a whole fitness community that the standard has been set by guys who are genetically gifted in their structure, genetically gifted in their muscle insertions, who abuse usually significant quantities of drugs. And that's kind of set the standard. And that standard, if that's what you judge yourself by, you're going to struggle with this for the rest of your life. It's going to be a problem for you. Just a pro tip out there. I think most of you out there will find that I'm right. If you just change your approach and train for strength, I think you will find it will build your confidence more. And ultimately, once you build a strength base, you'll probably find it's easier to get a little more aesthetic in the long run anyways. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.